Hey guys, Irit Eizips here. Did you often wonder what sets apart high-performing teams from those who are not doing so great? Well, you can stop guessing because today I have a guest that is going to share with us research results for what separates high-performing teams and what do those champions actually are doing that those who are not performing as well are not. And so I'm really excited today to have Andreas Knoefel, who has his own business on customer success strategy consulting. So we'll add the link below to his consulting company and services. And today he's going to share this research result called CSPI, which is the Customer Success Performance Index. Andreas, thanks again for appearing on our channel.
You're so welcome. Always thrilled talking to you.
Tell me a little bit about CSPI, the Customer Success Performance Indicator. You developed it a few years back.
Yes, the idea really came about what would be the relevant dimensions for customer success to analyze what makes good and bad performing teams.
Before we dive into the actual results, I want to say anybody that listens to this video, if you wanted to see how you benchmark against others, check out the link below. You can fill out the exact same questionnaire and then see how you compare and how do you score. And that could give you like an initial guidance on where to improve things.
You get instantaneous results. You get an email with a report that has some customized recommendations. So you see how you're faring against other people and where there are some areas where you may think into maybe adopting something as you go into your strategy for 2022.
Also in the comments below, if you belong to a high-performing teams and there's something that you can share in terms of tips and things that your company is doing that you feel like other customer success teams should be doing to get to this level, share them in the link below. The first thing that we learned from the research is the high-performing teams are getting to better results of about 28% higher net retention rate than those who do not. I get a lot of questions sometimes from startups. Can you increase renewal rate? Can you decrease our churn rate? This is the formula, essentially.
Yes, definitely. There are some companies among the leaders that are achieving even better results. I was focusing on the top 25% of several hundred companies who responded. So we have a good sample size to then come up with these 28%, which is a fabulous result and proves that the framework itself is actually working.
All right, so again, if you want to learn more about this, you can look at the other video that we created about the CSPI on this channel a couple of years back when you just developed the index. But for now, what can we learn about this specific graph?
As you can see, the top graph is the higher performing team. They are always scoring higher in each of the 8 dimensions from the internal alignment with the rest of the organization and have also influence over them and the ability to make existing customers successful all the way to what we have under ROI.
First conclusion that we found was that 86% of high-performance teams actually own the commercial relationship. That really means that they're not just working on product adoption or onboarding, they actually own the upsell motions as well as the renewal transactions.
Should customer success be a friend to the customers, end users, their executives? Should they be salesy or not salesy? And this really answers it. You should be salesy. A company is paying money to get a certain value out of the products and services that you're offering. And customer success maintains that relationship. And so transitioning that to someone else doesn't seem to make sense based on the data. This is the result of the survey.
Not only do high-performing teams segment customers in a customer-centric manner. They also design the customer journey to help those customers achieve those outcomes. Tell me a little bit more about that. Does that include onboarding journeys? Who is supposed to create those journeys? What have you seen?
Customer success owns everything after the initial sale. And so customer success owns the onboarding journey. Having that seamless integration where CS has the oversight and the knowledge of the entire customer state is very, very critical. That is where the design of this optimal customer journey comes in, where from a CS perspective, not just looking into the implementation, getting the implementation done to unlock the maximum value for the customer. And that is where the optimal customer journey comes in. Internally, looking into the customer segmentation as the key driver to develop specific journeys, to develop specific playbooks, to develop specific strategies to measure which customers are most successful and are becoming your benchmark, your champions, which are the ones who are struggling and what to do with those struggling customers. And so that becomes very powerful because this is again measured by what customer success should be all about, the customer outcomes, and using those as a segmentation for everything else that follows in lockstep.
You also found that 86% of the highest performing teams do take a lot of time to standardize processes, document processes, and only less than half of the trailing companies are actually busy doing that. Why do you think that's the case?
If you liked what you've heard so far, that's awesome. More coming in a second here, but in the meantime, I want you to click that like button so that YouTube knows that this is great content and you can start sharing it with others.
What amazed me was not just, okay, you have standardized processes, yeah, your business should run a bit better within CS, but it drives bottom line, it influences the bottom line very, very strongly. And so that needs to become one of your main focuses. Take the time to document, to analyze, to learn, because if you do not document it, then I have my way, you have your way, somebody else has their way, and we don't know what is actually working better between the three of us, only specific behaviors or the approach that we're taking with customers. And this is really, again, evidence that it's not just making sense, but it's making sense because it drives the business results for the company significantly up.
Next is you found that 71% of the high-performing customer success team actually offer health checks to their customers versus less than 50% of the trailing customer success teams. What is a health check and why is it so important to make such a difference?
Analyzing if a customer is humming along, if they're outperforming your average customer, or if they're struggling. That is really what a health check is about. It can be a very formal process that leads, for example, to an executive business review, where you're saying, here is the state of the union for you, Mr. or Mrs. Customer. Here is all the productivity gains that you had. Here are the areas that you're struggling in. Here are some areas where we were really weak. Provide this as a designated step, but as something that is prescribed, mandatory in the customer journey. And then when it comes time to renew a contract, when it comes time to talk about expansion capabilities, having that health check result, you are a healthy customer. You could even be healthier. That is the importance of the health check. And again, it's a distinguishing behavior that separates the high-performing companies from the rest.
So health check is really the moment where we tell the customer how do they benchmark against best in class, find opportunities to get them healthier, or let them know what areas they can improve. We also found that 100% of the highest performing customer success teams rely on the NPS survey results versus only less than half of the trailing customer success teams even performing NPS surveys or relying on their results. How do you think those teams rely on NPS results? I know there's a lot of controversy around NPS surveys. How do they benefit from it to make it so important for them so that all of them are actually doing this?
NPS score has now become such a prevalent and really well-known score. But to really look into this, number one, not just how is a company doing, but how are the various stakeholders within a company doing when it comes to the NPS score? How are the executives rating it? How are the end users rating it? How are my key power users rating it? Where are people struggling with it? To then hone in from a customer success perspective for every individual in the company as well as the company overall, to drive then specific playbooks to individuals or to maybe a company who is struggling a bit, and that also shows itself in the NPS score, to invoke certain playbooks if it is deemed based on some decision criteria that this customer is easy to fix, to rescue, or to do something else with it. And that is really leveraging the NPS score instead of just having a number and saying, well, mine is 17. That's not really meaningful, but looking behind what makes up that 17, what are the customers that are driving it up and what are the customers that are dragging it down?
There's another score that seems to be fairly leveraged by high performance teams, which is the user login trends. And I assume here it's mostly SaaS companies that actually have access to usage data. Only a third of the trailing customer success teams are actually using that versus 57%. How are they using that user login trends? What are they using it for?
Before we continue, don't forget, subscribe to our YouTube channel and smash that notification button so that you don't miss out on any new videos.
It starts very simply with one of the milestones in a customer journey. When are you expected to have a certain adoption rate? After the initial configuration, implementation, or if it's very simple, not much kind of onboarding training, you have an expectation in that out of the 500 licenses, at least 400 or 450 are used after 3 months. You need some way to just measure that. That is the first thing. Then it's also about user login trends. And it's not just about the logins, it's also about using specific capabilities once they're logged in. Then it's also about the trending itself to look into, well, last month, the utilization and adoption was really in the high 90s. Now it's in the mid 80s. So why is there a trend? Was it because of COVID? Was it because of a holiday in a specific country? Or are users getting disgruntled and not using the solution in the rich way that you had anticipated?
The other metric that you found, which I thought was really interesting, is the support tickets trend, that 71% of the highest performing teams actually leverage that to kind of gauge whether their strategy is effective or not, versus the 39% of almost half of the trailing teams are not even looking at it, especially not to assess whether their strategy is effective. What is the assumption here, that if you have less support tickets in general, that means that your customer success strategy is effective? Or what are you looking at here, do you think, as an executive?
You can use it again as one of the indicators and triggers to find different trends in customer behavior. Why is the average number of support tickets suddenly going up within this specific customer or entire cohorts of customers after the new release? Are there any bugs that are really driving that? Is a customer that we just launched an education campaign for new capabilities suddenly pumping up more of the support tickets, more feature requests or anything, which is an indicator that whatever the service, the product that you provided is supposed to do is not meeting the expectations of the users, and that they're struggling with a lot of things.
The other thing that you found is that most high-performing customer success teams actually use an onboarding software. We've seen a few onboarding platforms come into play like CX Guide, Bayton, Rocketail, Onboard AI. Like there's a bunch of them, right? Seems like the highest performing team actually uses software to just track those milestones. I did a whole time to first value video with Eyal Meor just recently. It talks exactly about how he leverages tracking onboarding milestones to improve the time to first value for customers. We know that that's important as well. Is this what you're also seeing?
Yes, absolutely. In a very complex fashion with project plans and milestone reviews, this is very natural. But in many, many cases, it doesn't have to be something like that. You can define these onboarding milestones as the first couple of steps within your customer journey. And then you also need to track them like your adoption goal. After 3 months or 6 months, we should be at 85% of adoption. After 2 months, we're expected to actually have a fully productive and fully configured solution for everyone to leverage, and everybody trained and onboarded and knowledgeable.
I want to jump into another topic where you found 2/3 of the highest performing customer success teams spend time with the executives. Did you mean the CSMs or the executive to executive alignment? What do you reckon is actually happening there?
What is happening with this one is the hypothesis that I have about it is that many CSMs come from a technical background and are therefore focused with technical users. I have a question. This is not working. Can you help me with this? My inbox is full with that. I have alerts and triggers in my CS platform, several pages long. And so the executives themselves are neglected. But it's not just 2/3 of companies. It's actually they're spending 2/3 of their time with the executives, not with the end user community, to make sure that these executives are empowered about all the ongoings with the solutions, the good, the bad, and the ugly, that they're understanding what value is already harvested, where we were behind to come up with the relevant strategies, and then set them also up for the renewal cycle, for an upsell event, for a reference account, etc., etc. And so it's about fostering meaningful relationship with key customer stakeholders and spending time with them to empower and enable them with the respective information that they require.
You also found regarding predictive renewals models that are much more frequent for high-performing teams.
In order to have a predictive model, you need to have enough indicators, metrics, measurements, data points to come up with a model that says if a customer is churning, they look mostly like this. If a customer is renewing, they look mostly like this. If a customer is expanding, then here are some of these other type of things to really build these predictive renewal models with all the statistics and data scientist lab codes. If you're able to build a model within your CS organization to start looking at some of these modeling behaviors from simple benchmarking, who are my best customers? If you have that in place, it drives the business results up like many of the other things that I mentioned here.
One of the surprising factoids that you found in your research was for me that customer success teams offer free onboarding 1.5 times more frequently than those of the trailing companies. How do you explain that?
It's actually twofold, because there's another data point that also says that the high-performing companies are offering paid professional services 4 times more frequently than the trailing companies. But when you look into both sides of the equation, it's again, customer success is taking care of the onboarding as a part of the customer journey. Taking onboarding as part of investment that you make in your customer and ensuring that the end users, that the IT team, and that the support staff, that the power users, etc., are knowledgeable and able to use your product, your solution, that drives them at the end, the renewal cycles, because they're empowered, because your time to value is way shorter than letting a customer struggle by themselves and rely only on the in-app guide, which is of course also needed, doesn't just rely on the community to support your customer, but take an active interest in the success of each individual that you're supposed to onboard in this first step. As businesses mature, they're expecting a way more full product, full service. And as part of that, you also need to provide these types of professional services and a customer that sees the value in having extra focus by additional subject matter experts, integration experts, and other team members on there. They're willing to pay for that as well.
I want to remind everyone, it only takes about 10 minutes to fill out the assessment. We're going to have the link to the survey below so you can see exactly how much you score. Andreas, I want to thank you for taking the time to go through the results of the survey. And I want to remind everybody that Andreas has a YouTube channel called CS Tuner, where he goes through various tips for high-performing teams as he interviews thought leaders from around the world. Guys, if you like this video, enjoy this channel, you want to help the channel continue to produce these types of videos, give this video a like, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and I'll see you at the next video.